next to me, running on dream. Cause I can't see how this could be reality. You're holding me close and I don't know, do I let you in? Do I let it show? All of my fears and all of my ghosts are the only thing I've ever known.
Nelson Mandela said that what counts in life is not the mere fact that we've lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead. All right, welcome back to another Morning Coffee with your host, Rick Alexander, Monday edition. You know, I hate those people that are like, oh, Monday doesn't suck, bro, your life sucks. It's like, give me a break. Everybody, you know Monday sucks. Everybody knows Monday sucks. It's okay. We're going to get through it together. Big, tall cup of coffee and a good conversation. And you know, that's why I wanted to start Morning Coffee in the first place. Every once in a while, I started to notice a pattern. And like when I would have coffee in the morning with certain people and we would have a stimulating conversation, I noticed even the conversation would be good, but it was what came afterward that really mattered, because then that thought would get planted in the back of my head. And so as I'm going through the rest of my day, I sort of am on autopilot and I'm doing all the things that I would have to do for work or whatever it is I'm doing that day. But then mentally, I'm always like flushing out this idea that we talked about, or I'm always like sort of reframing things and I'm looking at it in a different light. And so that's what I like about the idea of listening to this in the morning. And I know not everybody does that, but you know, you put this idea into your head on your commute, on your way to work, on whatever, into your subconscious. But then you sort of are subconsciously always thinking about it, and you might come up with something, you might realize that you actually feel differently about the world, and that can be a really powerful catalyst for change. We're always remapping the world out, and so that it makes sense for us, and so that we know where we're at in that world. And as a quick side note, I will say, if you've not listened to the other morning coffees, I would go back and listen to some of those, because I'm definitely gonna build on some of the ideas that I've talked about earlier. But this idea that we're always remapping the world out is actually really powerful, because it allows us to sort of take ownership and authorship in the world that we're creating. And that's actually we're gonna talk about that tomorrow. But psychologists call this coherence. This idea is called coherence. And basically it's like, does 1 + 1 + 1 = 3? So are the events and sequences in your life making sense to how you understand the world? And so you might listen to these and you might think that you don't actually agree with some of the points that I'm presenting or putting forward. But that's okay, because to agree with a point isn't necessarily the point. The point is to take this idea that's novel, different, or the way that you frame the world, and to put it into your mind so that it might have the ability to grow and change and become something else. That idea might sit there and you might realize that you don't necessarily have coherence with the world like you thought you did. And so you get to understand something about yourself a little bit better, and about your success and about your achievements and about the way that you're going about getting all of those things. And that's what makes morning coffee, in my opinion, particularly potent. It's the fact that we get to subconsciously plant an idea, and then we get to always ruminate and think about that idea, and we might find something new out about ourselves or the world that we live in. And so when I talk about coherence and I talk about mapping the world out, that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about today. See, we have a basic human need for significance. Everybody deep down wants to know that we had some sort of significance with our life. And I talked about this in the death episode, I believe, because it's like, okay, there's 7 billion other people on Earth. Like 114 or something billion people have come before us. So when you face this like vast insignificance, how do you actually feel like you're making some sort of a difference? Now, what's interesting is because we all have this need to feel significant, we've all reached for it in our own ways over time. And so the idea that I want to introduce today is this fact that as you reach for significance, what is your pattern of behavior when you don't get the validation that you wanted? So because this is a basic human need, and because I know that we all want to know that our life isn't just sort of lost in the ether, that it made a difference to us and to the world at large, since you were a kid, you figured out ways in order to be noticed. And that is a microcosm of actually feeling significant. And so what I would encourage you to do is to think back about all of the ways that you've dealt with feeling insignificant in the past. When you've gone out or gone after something that you've wanted in the world and it hasn't worked out, what has been your MO? So I'll tell you, like mine is always to say, well, just go fuck yourself. Or fuck it, I'm done. I quit anyway. I don't care. Like that would be my thing. Not necessarily when we're looking at adversity, definitely not like physical adversity or anything like that. But when we're looking at feeling significant, I always act like I don't give a shit. That way I get to protect my ego from actually giving a shit and failing. And I think a lot of people probably have that exact same one. And so what is your pattern? Is your pattern to say fuck it? Because then when you say fuck it, you're like, I quit anyway, or I'm out, or I'm done, or whatever it is. When you give up mentally, you let yourself off the hook from failure. But the reality is that that failure doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things, because significance, our feeling of long-term contentment with being significant, comes from a true evolution of ourselves to make an impact on the world on only the way that we can. So our job is to come into alignment with what we actually want for our lives and for ourselves, because we are uniquely positioned to impact the world in a certain way. And this doesn't mean you need to be Nelson Mandela. You might be an accountant, and that might bring you into alignment, and you might do that for a nonprofit who is serving the world in a really important way, right? It's not to say that this thing is more important than this thing, and so we get into this comparison game, and that's where we start to run into more problems. It's like, no. The way you feel significant is by the evolution of yourself, by starting in one place with all of our fears and all of our rejections and all of our internal shit, and evolving into the best possible version of ourselves. And so my question today is, what will you choose next time you feel rejected? Will you evolve to the point where you stop standing in your own way, where you stop creating problems with yourself? Will you deal with your own shit so that you can make the biggest impact on the world possible by evolving to your highest self, to the best possible version of who you are? The only way you're going to be able to do that is if you wade back through the ways that you've mapped out the world, through the ways that you find coherence with the reality that you live with, the way that you contend with that reality, and then you sort of excavate all of the shit that's not serving you. Because as soon as you do that, you become the most fullest expression of yourself. And once you become the fullest expression of yourself, you then become primed to serve others. And that is where your significance is going to come from. But we spend a lot of time looking for it in the wrong place. That is for sure. See you guys tomorrow on Morning Coffee.